Hey, Amie,
Yeah, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amie Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You are listening or watching Baseball Shangri-La. If you're listening to us on the audio portion of the show, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. Amie, long time no talk. ¿Cómo estás?
Are you amped because our song worked on time this time?
You know what? You even laugh before anything happens. You know how discouraging that is? It's like you're waiting for me to mess this up. And it's just like, all I do is I look up and I see you laughing at me. It's like, look, technology's just not my friend. What do you want from my life?
Hey, it makes us human. I like it. I'll take a free laugh.
Huh?
It's a good thing.
Okay, so at the time we are recording this, it has not been the trade deadline yet. Okay. So any trades that we don't discuss right now,
It's because we're not prescient. We don't have a crystal ball.
Exactly. And the trades happen after we finish recording this episode. So we're going to start out the show talking about the trades that have happened. Amie, can you let us know what trades the Doyers have made up until this point?
Oh my gosh, my notebook is a mess right now. So there was a three-way trade earlier today with, hold on, let me get some cleaner notes here. So the Dodgers acquired right-handed pitcher Michael Kopech from the Chicago White Sox, and then they also got infielder, outfielder Tommy Edman and minor league right-handed pitcher Oliver Gonzalez from St. Louis. Also, his middle name is Adrian, so his name is Oliver Adrian Gonzalez. Sorry, I digress. And then LA traded infielder, outfielder Miguel Vargas to the White Sox, along with minor leaguers Herald Perez and Alexander Albertus. So they went to Chicago. And then the Chicago's right-handed pitcher Eric Fetty and outfielder Tommy Pham went to St. Louis. So out of that, bummer, Miguel Vargas. But I hope he gets a lot of playing time.
You know, it's interesting to me because I'm curious as to why the Dodgers maybe weren't in on Eric Fetty. Because, again, I feel they could use starting pitching.
I was looking at that this morning too. We also have a couple other trades. Do you want to start with that bunch now, or do we want to go and just hit the last of them and then just make it a free for all?
Yeah, let's give us all the trades and then we can just go at it.
So as we were recording our last episode, the Dodgers acquired infielder, outfielder, old friend of the Dodgers, Amed Rosario from Tampa Bay, in exchange for minor league right-handed pitcher Michael Flynn. And to make room for Rosario, they did DFA left-handed pitcher Ryan Yarbrough.
And then also they finally completed the trade with James Paxton to the Red Sox, correct?
That happened earlier this week. So they did trade him to the Red Sox. We got infielder Moises Bolivar. He's in the Dominican Summer League right now. He's 17 years old. He's hitting .270, has 3 home runs and 19 RBIs so far this season. But he is 17, so probably won't see him right away.
And I think everyone expected this, but my tocayo in last name and apellido.
Do I need to start humming taps right now?
It's okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead.
You want to give the update?
Yeah. Johan Ramirez was DFA'd earlier in the week, and he was claimed off waivers by Boston. So they got 2 of our pitchers.
There you go. So the Dodgers' favorite whipping boy, the person to blame for all their bullpen problems, is gone now. So you guys are going to have to find a new person to complain about and blame everyone. Like, I'm not saying that Johan Ramirez was somebody who was great. I mean, I think this is like the 3rd team he's been DFA'd from just this year alone.
This is the part I hate about baseball. Like, just, I don't know.
So when everybody says, "Why haven't they DFA'd him?" I mean, you knew it was coming. Like it's just like let him be. Just let him enjoy being a Dodger as long as he can.
I think it was more for me, like we DFA'd Paxton before we DFA'd Ramirez, where it was like, maybe we need an innings eater. Like maybe hold on to that for as long as you can, because our guys aren't going very deep into games. But I'm not on that planning committee.
Well, I mean, and that goes back to my point where I was surprised that the Dodgers, and that was, other insiders had mentioned that name as a possibility maybe for the Dodgers. But this is the thing that's fascinating to me in that is we don't know what's going on inside that room. Like we don't know what the Dodgers, what they really covet. We also don't know.
Nor are we entitled to that. Well, I feel like a great many people think that they are entitled to that information. Like, we'll slow our rolls here.
So this is what I think about that trade. I mean, Michael Kopech at one point was a starter, but it seems that the White Sox have been just using him out of the bullpen this year. And I know a lot of people are in love with his velocity and his strikeouts. And of course, it just cracks me up that every Dodger fan immediately goes, "Oh, once the Dodgers get a hold of Kopech, they're going to fix him. They're going to put him in the Prior lab and he's going to be great." And it's just like, how many
we all have our different Care Bear stares, apparently.
Yeah, I'm just like, how many more examples do you guys need to see that this guy's not a miracle worker? Like he can't really like fix everybody, but yeah, and everybody, and I don't know if they're just homers and it's just like the Dodgers can do nothing wrong, and that's what drives me crazy. But I mean, this year, Michael Kopech, I mean, he's got an ERA over 4 and
4.74 right now in 43 games, 59 strikeouts, 43.2 innings pitched. He's ranked 17th among qualified relievers in the MLB.
So apparently, the Kopech move probably it was going to be a numbers game in the bullpen because Brusdar Graterol is supposed to, I think, maybe weeks away from coming back. I think Ryan Brazier, last update you gave, he's going to be going on a rehab assignment. So that bullpen is going to start to get crowded. So the fact I am a little surprised that they designated Ryan Yarbrough for assignment only because the Dodgers used him in a very specific way. But it is now getting to performance. It is getting at the point of the year where you need to perform in order to have a spot. And he just hasn't looked good lately. I feel like
we Brandon Morrowed him a little bit. Like we relied on him a little too much, where like if he came in and he used to be a starter, he's used to being in a rotation, where we've used him multiple nights in a row. And it's like, that's rough on anybody.
Yeah, the Tommy Edman. I know the Dodgers just love people who can play multiple positions,
but he hasn't played yet this year.
Exactly, and that's what's concerning to me, Amy, is their reliance on so many people coming back from injury, having them perform. That concerns me.
Because they're gonna need some leeway, and I don't know. Maybe Tommy Edman was thrown in as part of this trade just to make it go because it was a 3-team trade. So you don't know if that was he a pivotal piece or was he like a let's add him in? But he has not played this season because he's coming off of right wrist surgery. Last year he was in 137 games, hitting 248, 13 home runs. So.
But the key, Amy, is he's coming back from wrist injury.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. It's just like Mookie coming back from that hand injury, and everybody just assumes you guys all think Mookie's just going to go back to the form that he was in at the beginning of the year.
What do you think causes that? Like just this, like, well, they've been cleared medically, so obviously they're going to be at peak performance. Like that there's just no, I don't want to say a grace period, but like it feels like many people believe that like, oh, the minute they've got the go ahead and they get in a game, like it's on. And like we've seen with Gavin Lux coming off of surgery, he had a little bit of a slow start. He's finding his stride now and hopefully he can keep that going, but it's not magical. The minute you come back into a game, you're like, yeah, I'm good. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't get it myself. And that's where I think, is it just a blind allegiance to the Dodgers? Is it just homerism that whoever the Dodgers get, they're going to be good because the Dodgers got them, and we're
No,
just
because I'm a
completely
homer,
ignoring.
and I don't think that, because I feel like I'm a homer. Like I love this team. I will typically back up the front office and whatnot, but I also don't believe that anybody's a miracle worker in that respect. Like, they do a
Yeah,
lot, but
I mean, another trade that we haven't talked about yet was the one that where they got Ahmed Rosario. And look, Ahmed Rosario kills left-handed pitching. This is the second time the Dodgers have picked them up. He's hitting 307 with Tampa. So I'm sure the plan is we're only going to see him play against lefties. And again, look, this is the other thing. As much as I bitch and moan to you, Amy, the Dodgers have a philosophy. They are committed to it, and they are not going to stray away from it. As much as I howl to the moon, part of their philosophy not only are pitch counts, but it's
do you
platooning.
do you howl to the moon?
Oh yeah.
Is it typically after games?
No,
During?
I do it all the time.
Okay.
I'm like,
All right.
oh,
Oh,
it's
I am
just,
so sorry for your ears. I walked right into that, guys. My bad. So sorry.
I saw that. Yeah, no, it's just look. They have what these moves, Tommy Edman, Ahmed Rosario, for me, when they're making moves for infield depth, it concerns me that Max Muncy isn't coming back. You know, and I know you and we've had this conversation off air that even if he does get ready, is he going to really have enough time to get amped up? Because the last thing you want to do is throw that guy in the playoffs and be like, hey, we need you to be Max Muncy, when it's just like, I just got back.
Go. Be Max Muncy. Ta-da! I don't think that's fair to any of the players, but especially with the injury that he's had and the setbacks that he's had, they thought he would be back sooner. Obviously, you were correct in your assessment earlier in the season. It would not be a 10-day
I'm sorry.
IL
What
stint.
did you say?
Oh, I said you were right in
I'm
that.
sorry. It's just, sometimes I don't hear you so well. Like these headphones, they're
I
kind of.
already said it. I already said it.
I said, you said what?
That you were right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm,
All right.
mhm.
Go ahead.
No, but you were right in that it wasn't a 10-day IL stint. They and Roberts addressed this earlier in another scrum, saying that they were hopeful. I don't know what a typical outlook is for an oblique strain. If there's like a gradation there of like, well, maybe it could have been 10 days. Maybe it's, we're in July edging on August at this point. I mean, if we see him anytime soon, like I'm not a medical practitioner, but late September? Because if he's still not even really practicing fully, he's got to make it through rehab assignments all through August. So I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to be in the August by the end of this week. And again, I can't stress enough, guys, these guys have all the information. They're making their decisions based on information that we are not privy to. All we have to do is read in between the lines. And sometimes when you read in between the lines, you're wrong. But the fact that they're adding, the best thing that you can say about Tommy Edman is that he can play multiple positions. That's great. Does he do them all at the same time? Because the Dodgers already have guys who can play multiple positions. I don't know if you can say they're elite in any of them, but they can play them.
He plays second base, shortstop, and outfield. So, I mean,
so
and maybe we don't know. Maybe these are going to be some trade chips to turn around before. I know that we're recording on Monday, but by the time this drops, we don't know what they have in the works for Tuesday. It's either going to be something that's going to blow everybody's mind, or it's going to be mellow. And either way, we don't have control over it.
Which is something that I think a lot of Dodger fans, if they're honest with themselves, would say that they should have been prepared for. Because all the people that are coming back from injury, and Andrew Friedman said this, if it wasn't last week, maybe it was the week before, when they said they weren't going to make trades if it was just going to be a marginal improvement from the guys that they got coming back. So,
plus, it feels like there's slim pickings in the in the market right now anyway. So like there's not a whole lot of guys that are, it's not like there's an influx of like, oh yeah, there's all these starting pitchers and I'm just gonna let's take 3 of them. I'll just grab 3. It's like there's not a lot to go around. And now with the expanded playoffs or the wild card and whatnot, people are still trying to figure out if they're going to sell or not. So you've got to balance all these players that nobody wants to get rid of because these are our players and they're coming back from injury. So those are still going to eventually be roster spots. So do you either, do you go out and you get a whole bunch of guys that don't really exist in this market, or do you wait for our team to come back and hope that they can hit the ground running?
Yeah, and not only that, it's the price. I mean, look, I have finally come to the rationale: trade them all, trade all the prospects, especially like not everything is guaranteed to pan out, and so it's about winning a World Series,
Right.
especially when you have guys like Federico, you have guys like Mookie that are getting older. You want to take advantage of their prime, especially
Yeah.
with Shohei. So the
Wasn't it
sooner
Juan
you can,
Toribio who's like, don't be a prospect hugger?
yeah, don't be yeah. Juan Toribio is like he subscribes to trade them all. I mean, look at the show pods GM Preller. Like he's like he's got the philosophy of fuck them kids. He's just like trade them all too. I just think you have the focus has to be, and I get how hard Andrew Friedman's job is because there are some GMs out there that do trade the farm and then the team falls off the cliff and they're not competitive for years. And what Andrew Friedman and the Dodgers have been doing and been successful at it is keeping that farm system replenished and keeping the team competitive every year. So he deserves all the credit in the world for that. He has done that well.
It's a lot of balance, and like you said, it's not something that's easy to do, and he gets a lot of flack either way for it. If he trades them all and then something happens where, obviously this is not the way we saw the season going, right? But he trades them all and then we need them next year, like then what? Or you have people like, Vargas, Outman. I know that they're up right now, but like prior to this, they've been in the minors for a while. Michael Busch, we saw, who got traded earlier this year. So do you trade some of those older players that could get playing time somewhere else and could also give you some leverage, or are you holding on to them too because they at least have a little bit more experience rather than bringing a rookie up who has none of that? Like there's so many things to balance, and I'm just a fan. I cannot imagine what it looks like to keep all of that in play, and I am not envious of his job at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, Miguel Vargas he gets an opportunity now to hopefully play every day over with the White Sox. I think it was time for him to go because he needed that opportunity to prove whether he is a major leaguer or not. And he wasn't going to get that opportunity with the Dodgers. And the other thing is, Amie, I have to say this. I've been a little troubled lately from what I've been seeing from Miguel Vargas. And I don't know if that's just a credit to the fact that he's frustrated because he's not getting an opportunity. But to see him lollygagging out there, and it's like,
oh my gosh, I forgot about that in our last episode. That
yeah,
I had no words when I saw that happen. And it was like, why are you not rushing to home plate? Like when you get to home plate, then you can stop and watch what's happening.
And I get it. That's human nature. I'm sure like the majority of major leaguers would probably do the same thing that he did, jog to home, right? Because look, to me, that was a freak play. I know a lot of people were getting on Kike's case, but it was like there was nobody at the base. His momentum carried him off of second base. The ball took Bregman towards second base. It was just one of those things where it was just horrible timing.
That to me was the freak play part. And I agree, and not just because it's Kike, but the jogging to home plate, to me, it's you always run. You don't unless it's a home run and you have the luxury of just jogging around the bases. But even then, you don't want to piss off the other team, and you want the game to keep going. But there's no room for jogging, like and rookie move. And
And like I said, I feel a lot of major leaguers would have done the same thing. It's just bad timing. I've seen it happen to a lot of major leaguers. But my
Yeah.
question is this: not only that, but sometimes this is not the first time I've seen him chalk stuff out. Here's my thing: it's like, bro, you don't have a guaranteed spot. You're not a
Mhm.
major leaguer yet. It's like you don't have the luxury to have this lackadaisical attitude. You need to be out there busting your ass to make sure that you can stay. So, like I said, I don't know if it's just the frustration and the fact that he doesn't get the opportunities with the Dodgers. And so I hope now that he goes to the White Sox, you don't see that anymore. And he
And
does end up
And it could have
being
just
a major
literally
leaguer.
been a rookie move. Like it,
Yeah.
if you see now, if that becomes the norm, then that's something to be worried about, whether he's on the Dodgers or the White Sox. But like if it's a one-time thing, as frustrating as it is as a fan to see that happen, we all make mistakes.
Look, in the end, he was a highly touted prospect. He was in the he played in the futures game a couple of years ago, and in the end, the Dodgers traded him for a utility guy and a reliever. That's what they could have gotten. That's what they got out of him, and that's what concerns me. To me, because to me, the Dodgers' best prospects, the ones that they're going to get the most out of, are their pitchers. The Dodgers have proven that they can develop pitchers. What I'm concerned about is they can't develop position players. Now, we'll see what happens with Gavin Lux. But other than that, Diego Cartaya, people are saying now he's not even going to make the major leagues anymore, right? Well, let's see
Ooh,
what
my.
Dalton rushing and all that stuff. But you guys tell me, when's the last time that you saw a Dodger, develop an actual, position player?
Will Smith,
Maybe Corey Seager. Oh, okay. Yeah. Will Smith. How long has Will Smith been up in the major leagues?
2019.
Okay. So maybe I'm being too hard on them. But it just seems like the pitchers are the ones that they are doing a great job of developing, and the position players are not as successful as their
Yeah,
pitchers are.
2019. Well, and you had Seager, you had Bellinger, who had a couple good years before he fell off. I mean, or at least the MLB figured him out. So
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, Miguel Vargas will hopefully get the opportunity to show whether he's a major leaguer or not. To me,
thank
he's the
you
guy
for
without
your
a
flexibility, sir, and for playing on our team.
Let's we have some other updates. You wanna get into those, or is there any other mind-numbing trade talk that you wanna cover?
Well, and you know how I look at trade stuff. It's not, I mean, we don't need another Shohei Otani situation from last year. So until they say that it's 100%, I'm like, okay, tell me when it's final. Um, we do so as far as like rehab assignments and whatnot. Gratterall, who was you mentioned earlier, Bruzdar, he was suffering that shoulder problem, so he has not pitched at all for the team this season. But he has pitched in Oklahoma City on consecutive days, which Dave Roberts said is promising. So he's out for his rehab assignment right now. So is Grove and Brazier, but they didn't really give updates on them. Buehler is also in Oklahoma City. He had his first start of his second rehab on last Friday. He pitched 4 innings, gave up 3 runs. They had said it would depend on like 1 or 2 games if he was going to be down there. They're saying it's looking like at least 2, which much to his chagrin because he wanted to come back a little sooner. But we'll get back to more of him in a moment. And then Miller pitched on Saturday. That was his second start. He pitched 3 2/3 innings. Gave up 6 runs, 5 earned through 92 pitches, 3 walks, 1 strike. So they both are going to be returning to Oklahoma City. And then just the normal stuff. Mookie Betts, he's cleared to start hitting, doing some soft toss and off the tee. He's swinging again, taking ground balls, running. He should be back hopefully in a couple of weeks. You mentioned Yamamoto on our last episode. He's progressed in his throwing program. This week, he's set to throw off the mound, and that'll be the first time since June 15th. And then Friday, he is scheduled to pitch a bullpen session. And then as we all know, Freddie Freeman is out on the family emergency list. It's unclear when he'll rejoin. He was placed on that on Saturday, due to family reasons. So hopefully he comes back soon.
And one more thing that I want to add there to the Bobby Miller thing, I just want to remind everyone that him being in the minors, there was no timetable for how long the Dodgers were going to keep him there. So the plan is to keep him down there until he figures things out. And he had a good start, his first start when they sent him down to Oklahoma, but he had a little bit of a rocky, well, it was a rocky start this last one. So it seems like they're probably looking for some level of consistency with Bobby Miller before they bring him back up, unless they're so desperate that they need him to start a game. But one of the other things that I want to add on top of the Freddie Freeman situation, because I think it serves as a really good reminder of a couple of things. One is that all of this stuff is just really not important, guys. So really don't work yourself up. If the Dodgers don't end up making a big trade, they don't. The Freddie Freeman situation should put everything into perspective. Another thing I think they should put things into perspective is former Dodger Reyes Moronta passed away at the age of 31, and he died in a car crash. And again, I feel like this Dodger season has been really, really weird with all the off the field stuff that's been happening, the injuries, and it just we don't know yet, but it feels, Amie, like sometimes it's just there's too much to overcome, and it just might not be your year.
I wouldn't even do that. I think because it's baseball and like anything can happen on any given day, like and this comes back to we all choose how we want to experience or watch the game or whatever. For me, this is my haven. This is my baseball Shangri. I'm going to use the actual word, but it's my Shangri-La. This is my paradise. For some people, part of that paradise is being upset with the game, the players, the front office. If that gives you joy, then experience the game however you want. But to me, like I love baseball. Win or lose, watching this game, if this is the only game I get today, I'm going to watch it and I'm going to enjoy it. And if we lose, I'm going to find the positives in it. And hopefully we do get a new game the next day, because we didn't get that a couple years ago in 2020. We didn't even get spring training. We thought it was going forward. People had tickets and it got taken away from us. And I guess maybe that's part of the shift that I have too, just kind of piggybacking on what you said, like what's important in life. Freddie Freeman, poor Moronta, I hope, rest in peace. Like this game is supposed to be a joyful thing. It's supposed to be connection. This is what unifies us across politics, religion, whatever we economically make. This is what's supposed to bring us together, not upset us and drive us apart. And I hope that some of these things really drive that home so that people can start to enjoy this game again, because it feels like a lot of people don't as much as they used to.
Yeah, I mean, Reyes was 31. I don't know how old Freddie Freeman's kid is.
He's 3 years old.
He's 3 years old, and that's one of those things where you don't know how long this is going to go for. I was surprised he was even playing. The fact that he even made that trip to Houston, and I get it. Sometimes, people still need to do things to distract themselves from what's going on. That's the only way they survive it. But I have to applaud the Dodgers, and I don't know if this is how it really went down, but if they saw him and they saw that he was just distracted, the fact that they went up to him and said, "Hey, bro, your head's not here. Just go home." Like, that's the right thing to do.
And that's the stuff, like, you see people, like, chasing numbers, like, goals. Like, we're talking about Kershaw. He's, if he can get 50 more strikeouts, he's at 3,000. Like, these are some players, they've played consecutively. They've never missed a game. And then you have something like this happen that's out of your control. And it's like, for Freddie, we know he's in every game. There's no way you can drag him off the field. And right now, obviously, the priority is his son. But you have to, from a baseball perspective, there's some not sadness, but like recognition of like, you know he'd want to be out there because he likes having that consecutive time out there. And life happens, and we have no control over it, just like we have no control over what happens in baseball. So
Yeah. And I am curious the impact on the rest of the team, not in terms of baseball, but you and I are in that stadium and we see it. He always has his kids around. You know,
Mhm.
like his kids have relationships with other players on that team. So you do kind of have to wonder and like the level of empathy that players have for other players, especially like when Kike had his bobblehead night and his daughter was wearing the Kikita jersey.
Oh my God. It was just seeing her run around the field. Like, again, the humanity of the game, like it goes beyond just these guys complaining about how they play, celebrating how they play. Like, these men have families, they have wives that support them. Like, I know, bring my personal life into it for a second, but like I have friends who are very supportive of like, this is what I do with my time. And I work, I watch a lot of baseball. We go to games and cover them. We also do this podcast. So whoever ends up in my life is going to need to respect that. Much like these baseball players, they have wives that are very understanding of a 162 plus day schedule and being able to have their kids at the stadium or go for those family days. I feel like the Dodgers do a really good job as an organization of still bringing people together and making sure they get the time that they need when they need it, or if the players are injured. Dave Roberts has said, yes, they can show up to games, but also we want them with their families. Get your head right if you're injured and then come back. So like, nothing is promised. So I'm glad you brought that up, because while we love this game, there are sometimes bigger priorities in life.
No, absolutely. I mean, it just put everything into perspective. And it sucks that you need reminders like this to do this, to be. I mean, my dad always used to say, even when I was a kid watching the games, because I would get so mad when something bad would happen to the
You've
Dodgers or the
always
Dodgers.
been this way?
Oh, yeah,
Man.
always. Like my dad would always say to me, "Pero por qué te enojas? Like, why do you get mad?" It's like what you always said. He's like, you can't control any of this stuff.
Do you even like baseball, bro?
And it's just so it does kind of, especially with like what happened in Houston, those two brutal losses, right? Where you're just like, you know what? They're still in first place. And it's like,
And even if they weren't, shake it off. We got a new game tomorrow.
exactly. And talking about shaking it off, I think this is a good segue to the story that appeared in The Athletic about Walker Buehler, and in particular, Walker Buehler's rehab. So, Amie, you want to set that up for us?
Sure. I know you were very concerned about this because he went off site to Florida.
I was. And then this story, I think, answered a lot of the questions that I had.
And I think this is where you and I are a little bit different. And again, different, not being bad, but like for me, I'm like, it'll come out eventually or it won't. And then it's like all the questions that I might have had, this article kind of answered, but it also fell in line with what I was like, he's probably down there for whatever. And like somebody asked him, what inspired him to try something different? And he's like, being shit. Like, there's nothing worse than costing your team games and feeling like you're in the way because you need all this attention. It's easy to kind of demand attention and time or whatever when you're throwing the ball really well. But when you've got a 6 ERA, it's mentally hard. So even him saying like rehab is hard, trying to get out of rehab is hard, it just reaffirms these guys are human. They're doing the best that they can. Nobody is coming up to the plate and trying to not hit. No pitcher is like, man, if I can only go 3 innings today, I'm really going to screw them. Nobody's trying to have a bad game. And if they know they're having an off day, they still have to go out there and wear it, because who's going to take over for them? So this article was really
before you go in that, I just, for those who aren't familiar with what we're talking about here, in particular, Walker Buehler went to a private facility to do his rehab called the Cressy Sports Performance. It's in Palm Beach, Florida, and it's run by a guy that I think he knew back in his Vanderbilt days. So
yes,
there's a level of trust there.
Good setup, partner.
So go ahead.
A lot of things that came out of that too were he said that everybody kind of assumed he didn't have a hip problem, but he did. And he was like, basically like kind of messed up. Like his hip was bothering him. Not even the last start that he was in that he didn't pitch well. It was the one before that, and they were trying to get it right, but he was in a lot of pain pitching. So he decided to go, like you said, to the guy he knows, Eric Cressy, and have them take a look at it. The Dodgers signed off on it. Their mentality was basically, if this is what helps you get right, go do what you need to. It wasn't a, oh, you're going to another facility. You don't want Mark Pryor or our guy, Connor McGinnis to look at you. It was go do what you need to be good for this team. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was my thing, in that fact that like the Dodgers just don't do that, right? But the problem is I was covering the game when they asked Buehler about his leg, and he was doing something about his leg, which leads to this hip issue, right? And he immediately shut down all the reporters. He's like, I'm fine. And very similar to what
very Kershaw.
Exactly. Very similar to what Kershaw did last year, right? But the issue at hand is that's not, and again, this is when you read in between the lines, you can be wrong.
And I don't read in between the lines because I'm like, eh.
Well, and that's why, like, they finally got was it Fabian who wrote this piece?
I believe, hold on, let me double check. Scroll to the top. It was Fabian.
So, like, these were the answers that I feel if the Dodgers would have addressed this earlier, it wouldn't have been like, maybe Fabian didn't have to write this piece and explain to everyone why Walker Buehler was gone. And then all of a sudden he shows up and everybody's like, hey, Walker Buehler's back. Right. And because I do think there is a point that the story makes that I think is good, in the fact that he went back to what he already knew, what he was comfortable with. And there's another example of that with what Gavin Lux did over the All-Star break. Gavin Lux went back to Wisconsin, and I don't, was it his dad or his uncle?
I think it was
his uncle was his hitting coach in Wisconsin, and he gave him his pointers. And he comes back from the All-Star break, and he's on that streak. So maybe that's what it is when things are just not going your way, you really need to strip it down and go back to the basics. And you go back to the stuff that you were doing when you started your career. I mean, for the longest time, I don't know if anybody would ever make fun of Tony Gwynn, because Tony Gwynn is one of the greatest hitters that ever lived. But Tony Gwynn would hit off the tee, and he would always do his tee work. And everybody would be like, dude, why are you doing tee work? I mean, you're Tony Gwynn, right? But that's why Tony Gwynn is as great as he is, because he was committed. He had a routine. The tee is what worked for him. And so maybe this is what Walker Buehler was doing, is going back to Cressy and trying to go back. Now, the results haven't paid off yet because he had that shaky start in Oklahoma.
Well, it sucks to have all eyes on you in every start, just when all this stuff is happening. I would say too, though, you mentioned like if the Dodgers had just said this from the beginning, but I feel like sometimes we feel entitled to this information right when it comes out, but a lot of times they're still figuring it out themselves. So we don't know right away. And by that, I mean, like they may be figuring this out in flight while the team is falling apart on the road because of injuries. And it's like, all right, well, when things get settled, that information will come out. And I think that's where, again, you and I are a little different. I'm like, it'll come out eventually. They'll give us reasons. He's going to come back and they're going to talk about it at some point. So to me, it's like, all right, move on to the next thing. But, and they did. This piece pretty much addressed anything that I would have potentially had questions on. And it's like, they weren't really holding anything back. They shared, what Walker's outlook was, what led him to go out to that, how the Dodgers felt about it. And you mentioned like nobody from the Dodgers has ever done that. And you're absolutely right, but nobody's done it until somebody else does. So you might start to see more players do that. Like you mentioned, even just Lux on his own accord, going to his uncle and working on that. I was just talking to a colleague about pilots have that checklist when they're about to fly. And it doesn't matter how long they've been flying. They will always go down that checklist because it's so imperative to get everything right, because people's lives are on the line. They're not necessarily on the line in baseball, but games are important and the health of the players is. So if hitting off the tee is what got you to where you were, to me, it just makes sense. Like, yeah, keep doing that. That is the thing that got you there. Like us even doing this, like we liked to talk baseball. That's what we're doing. That's what got us here.
Yeah, there is something about transparency that I find fascinating because it can work both ways, right? And I go back to, for those of you who read the Kershaw book, in the Kershaw book, there was that instance with Dave Roberts and how Kershaw was mad that Roberts was telling everybody, hinting towards the injury. And look, by all accounts, especially with what we know now, Kershaw shouldn't have been pitching, right? And he deserves a lot of credit for going out there and
Him and
taking
Tony Gonsolin.
Yeah, going out there and taking one for the team, putting their career in jeopardy. All right. But when Kershaw goes up to Dave Roberts and says, "What are you doing? Just tell them that I suck." And like Dave Roberts is just like, "Bro, I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying." He's like, "Don't protect me. Just tell them that I suck." And that's what I find fascinating and maybe it's just because Kershaw's just a different person, but like when Kershaw's just like, "You don't need to protect me." I think there's certain players out there that thrive on that. As like, I don't need you to protect me. Be honest with them and let them know and let me handle this. And I feel like it helps.
But he wasn't really being forthcoming about it either, though. He wasn't coming out and saying stuff. He was, "I'm fine too."
Oh, Kershaw, yeah. Because he didn't want the injury out there because he didn't want, and this is again his own twisted mind. He didn't want people to go, "Well, he's pitching like this because of the injury," and it's like, bro, that's a legitimate reason,
right? No, but you're saying like he's like, tell them, but at the same time, he's not telling anyone. So it's like it's a mixed bag, and I think, I mean, sometimes I don't know how much HIPAA comes into play because, again, what are we really entitled to? This is also these guys' privacy. It's within the team. If they share it with the media, great. If not, I guess I don't look at it as them not being transparent. I just look at it like we're not entitled to everything. So in this case, like if Walker wants to share it, great, that's on Walker. But I don't know if maybe there's something in like team bylines or whatever that they can't share that information to a certain extent. I don't know. But I think it's something just to keep in mind too. Like I feel like this team is as transparent as they can be with things moving so quickly. With the, like we're not entitled to stuff in real time, even as they're figuring it out, because this is the same media, the same fan base that is going to crucify them. Well, you said this. I want to be a little bit more careful with the cards I'm holding so that I don't get that thrown back in my face. So, I mean, I could see it both ways. Like, yes, we do need the transparency, but also like, are we owed it in real time while they're still figuring it out? And that's something the team and the fan base will have to figure out how to coexist in that space.
Yeah, and something we can't lose sight of the fact is this is his last year. He's going to be a free agent. And I'm sure the idea of a hip issue being out there is not something that he's going to like because it'll affect how much money he's going to make next year. So I kudos to Fabian for writing that article and answering the questions that we had about Walker Buehler, because I do know some eyebrows were raised when they saw Rick Honeycutt at Dodger Stadium the same day that Walker Buehler showed up at Dodger Stadium, where it's like, wait, why is Honeycutt there? And it's just like,
and to me, I'm like, this is so awesome. I guess I come to baseball a little bit more childlike, where I'm just like, yes, Honeycutt's back. He's looking at Walker. Awesome.
But again, it's Walker Buehler, like he knows Honeycutt, and it's something that he knows. So I'm glad that you brought that article to my attention. Look,
I know you had some concerns.
It just felt for a minute there, the communication with the Dodgers and their players seemed really out of whack. And I was wondering if that was just contributing to the performance on the field.
Calmate.
Yeah, no pasa nada.
It's all okay. It all ends up just the way it needs to. Except unless you're Yarbrough or Johan Ramirez.
Again, at the time we recorded this was before the Tuesday trade deadline. So if any big trades happened, And the reason we're not talking about them is because we don't know about them. We will talk about them next time we see you guys. But
Hold on,
for
I
now,
think I'm sensing Juan is going to get traded to the Padres.
me?
Yeah, just kidding.
Wow. Guess I gotta get used to wearing brown. Any last words before we wrap things up, Amy?
No, I have none. I've used them all.
All righty. So that's going to do it for this episode. If you've been listening on the audio portion, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube YouTube channel. YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media, on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Baseball Shangri-La. She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You have been listening, watching Baseball Shangri-La. Nos despedimos con un beso. Amie, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, people.